All right, we're live. Welcome to TableTalk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bella Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello, it's me, Glue Boy.
And I'm sure we don't have many people in chat at the moment, but I'm sure if you're watching this post stream, very curious about the title of today's stream. And we will be getting to that, but as always, we always kind of just chat at the beginning, let some people hop into chat. So we typically get started somewhere around the 15-ish minute mark, give or take. So or 15 to 30, somewhere in that range. So if you're not interested in small talk, you can skip up to that point. But how you doing, Alex?
Pretty good. I finally got working on video stuff. When I got home from the trip, I was like, I don't wanna, and I just was chilling out for a day or two just to recharge. But yeah, I'm finally back in production. I have a new video that is popping the fuck off. Jesus Christ, it is doing hot. Because normally, if a video I drop on Thursday does well, it explodes around the time where we start doing Table Talk. The kind of thing where you mentioned, oh, your video's doing well, and I'm like, fucking, huh? I haven't looked at it. No, 3 hours after I posted, it started just shooting up. So, that's pretty cool. I like to see that. I'm glad it doesn't look like I'm gonna get punished for just kind of not doing anything for like a whole week.
Yeah, I'm gonna be suffering. Haven't posted a video in 2 weeks now.
Oof. That's fair.
No, I guess 2 full weeks, because I did post a video on like Monday last week.
That's true.
But it's getting there. Tomorrow I'm posting my Why Kineticist is Awesome video, so my actual class review video for Kineticist, which will probably help. One of the reasons why I haven't been... Oh, my gain is crazy high. 1 second. We learned I'm just, I guess, loud, or my voice carries, because...
A bit of both.
A bit of both. I'm sorry, then, if my voice shatters everyone's eardrums.
I mean, technically, yeah, if your voice carries, it has force behind it, so it is just loud. Like, it's kind of both. But I mean, that's good if you're talking all day. It means like I feel like I need to learn how to speak from my diaphragm. I've followed little like tutorials on how to do it, and like every time I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? How do I do that?
I can think choir. That's where it comes from. I was in choir for a long time.
I refused. The only singing stuff I ever did was in church, and I just refused to do it every time.
But I've met people who are just loud, like they just shout all the time. So I'm so afraid of just being that person.
Oh yeah, it never feels like you're shouting. It's just like I can hear you from like across the room.
I speak very clearly.
Yes.
All range audio. Let's go.
That's what it feels like. You're never raising your voice. You're just audible at all points in your house. But yeah, how good is Kineticist, by the way? Give me a preview. I've not read anything on it because I didn't get it. I didn't steal the book while I was there, or the PDF at least. How give some more deets, because you told me a little bit about metal. I want to know more.
Also, yo, Dead Phoenix, what's up?
Hello.
So Kineticist, I feel like it had the initial like hype. Like, everyone looked at it. A lot of their abilities are really cool, and I feel like people really kind of over-assumed how good Kineticist is. I don't feel like Kineticist is broken. I don't feel like Kineticist is gonna, like, change the DPS game, in a sense. Like, I don't think Kineticist is the new top dog when it comes to DPR in the game. I think this still belongs to Fighter, for the most part. I think Kineticist is super good and has a lot of really fun build potential. And if you want, you can make a very good damagey style of Kineticist. And for people who might be concerned, the way Kineticist's powers work, how they like pull elements from other planes, they can use their elements no matter what environment they're in. So even if they're in a vacuum, they can still use fire. Stuff like
That's good to know.
So
I didn't
you're
have
never
that question, but that solves that concern that could have popped up.
Yeah, you're never without your abilities, which is really cool. And I think in tandem with that as well, they have some crazy utility that is super duper powerful. And like infinite flight at level 8, for instance.
And
I think that's
still
crazy.
goofy.
That's really strong.
It's ridiculous. It's not like gonna kill everyone on the board, but like that's resources you can spend somewhere else.
Well, it's not even resources necessarily. It's just like people don't realize how many problems can be solved with flight. It's a lot. Outside of combat, flight is OP. So it's very, very good. And the Kineticist actually, for instance, can make a really good shield build using like an actual shield. Because they have an ability that just allows them to just recreate a shield for like an action, pretty much. And it gives them AC as well. It gives them medium armor, which they normally can only get to light armor, which solves a lot of problems with Kineticists when it comes to like durability in combat. And they also just have like lay on hands like abilities where they can do it, once every 10 minutes. I mean, they can do it as much as they want, but people become immune for 10 minutes after using it.
Okay. Makes sense. So yeah, like literally you have a lay on hands in your party. Like you don't have to worry about healing. You're fine.
Right. So all of this mixed together makes Kineticist essentially a better blaster caster for people who don't want to deal with a massive spell list.
I like that. Those words are nice to hear.
It's kind of the perfect kind of class for you personally, because you can still get like that fun little like, oh, look at this cool thing I can do stuff, while also doing like blasts. One of the feats I mentioned is Chain Infusion, which is really cool. It's like a meta magic that you apply before you use in a blast, your elemental blast ability. And when you do it, if your strike hits, it can chain to another target within its range, starting from that target. And if that hits, it can do it again up to 5 times. Granted, each one applies your multi-attack penalty, so it's not super good on chaining to like a lot of like higher level enemies. But the situation I used in the video was you could blast the boss with one of your abilities, and then you can chain it to all the little like mook enemies, the little mob enemies in the battle, and essentially you can attack 5 times with like 2 actions. Potentially.
God damn. William, maybe no. I'll still play wizard, but like, god damn, it sounds so cool.
It's really cool.
Avatar, based on an Avatar, like that's a cool video. Just I'll have to check out that one by Rose Lawyer. Because yeah, I want to go in like Earth and Metal are like my 2, because I really like earthbending in Avatar, and metal bending is so fucking cool.
Metal's really good.
Part of Metal that you've told me, I'm immediately like, thank God it's sick. That was my worry, that it just would be lame.
So kind of like in addition to that as well, they get some other really fun abilities, and I think it's good. But the reason why it's not broken is, one, Con is its main key ability, which is not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to what it does, because everything is based on its class DC. So it's kind of like a wizard in intelligence, right? Like, you can't really go wrong having a high intelligence as a wizard, because all your damage stuff is based on intelligence, and you can kind of make up for some of your defenses with it. But the problem is, there's no other uses for Constitution besides your fort DC. So, if you want your character to do literally anything outside of Kineticist, I don't know why I keep saying Alchemist, you have to invest in other skills. And it's not necessarily a problem when you like, well, yeah, but it's like same for fighter, right? It's like, well, no, because there's actually a lot of skills that use something like strength or dex. For instance, like acrobatics, you could use tumble through, or strength, you can use athletics. Even if you're a caster, like recall knowledge is mostly based on intelligence. There's some that even use wisdom. Charisma is used for like fainting or intimidating.
Huh.
Well, it looks like spellcasters are losing ability bonus damage to cantrips in the remaster. I've been hearing a lot of stuff about the remaster. A lot of casters have been... A lot of talk around the casters, and people are like, oh, they're nerfing casters, yada, yada, yada. I think it's because of the change to focus points. Specifically.
Oh, yeah, they are changing focus points. I remember reading that focus points being changed, because you know what? Actually, I saw it was posted on our Discord, the changes coming to the remaster. Yeah. I started reading Wizard, and I think I was at your guys' place. I was at your place, so then like something came up, and I put my phone away and was talking to you.
Yeah.
So I never finished it. I just remember being like, Wizard is changing.
Yeah, Wizard's getting substantial changes, actually. Crazy enough.
Yeah, it's kind of funny to me that my entire character is being changed for the remaster.
Yeah.
It's extra funny. It means I'm getting the crash course. I'm getting both an ancestry and a class change. Let's go.
1d4 plus that to 2d4, and then 2d6 when used in melee. Melee wizard.
That's really cool, actually. Ooh, that'd be good for Morgan, my sorcerer. I really like Produce Flame. I just wish it had more to do with it.
Also makes Magus a lot of fun.
That does. Oh, that'd be so good on Magus. That's a cool change. That one's sick.
That's cool. Yeah, there's a lot of interesting things. I think the biggest thing is that focus points are being retooled in a way. Now, anytime you pick up any focus feat, it will give you a focus point, but I think it's been confirmed that max focus points is still 3. So that's been a big confusing thing. In the preview thing, it just says every time you get something that says it gives you a focus spell, you get a focus point. But it doesn't specify like the limit, but the limit is still 3. So okay. Also, whenever you refocus, you can refocus 10 minutes each to get each of your focus points back. And then the feats that give you multiple points on refocus will give you bonuses. But this also makes it really good for the classes like the Oracle or the Psychic that can refocus multiple focus points to have some extra things. So they kind of get some feat efficiency through that, which they kind of already did, but now it's more impactful because everyone can do multiple focus points at once. It doesn't feel like a sink for other people. But if they want to do the same thing, they will have to invest. But those feats will also give them something else in addition to refocusing. So
nice.
Damn,
yeah, that's cool.
There's a lot of really good things, and I think a lot of people are actually. It's kind of the topic of today's video. So you know what? Let's get into that, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people have been coming onto like my videos recently, and I've been seeing it kind of all over the place, and saying, I'm leaving Pathfinder. I don't like the changes that WotC and Pathfinder are doing to tabletop. And it's enough that it's becoming like a trend to some degree. And so I kind of wanted to talk today about what that could be and like the reasons. And I feel like it's not as bad as it feels or it seems. People are not leaving in such frequency that it is going to cause like, oh, no one's playing Pathfinder now or anything like that.
Yeah, because I feel like if it's got to that point, I'd notice in my like only really following tabletop like stuff because I follow you on Twitter.
Right.
That you're the source of all of my like my Pathfinder knowledge on Twitter because I see people you follow top of my For You page.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and I think there's just been kind of this big uproar in around the remaster. I think the core of most of it is the remaster and why it's becoming more and more prevalent. And
it seems like a lot of people are thinking the remaster is going to completely gut the game. That's kind of the vibe I see with the remaster hate.
Well, I think it's a more intrinsic thing because it's also been happening with D&D. D&D 5e people have been saying this for a lot of things as well. And it was a trend that kind of started all the way back when... probably even before then, but when they're like, we're removing drow. Right. Removing drow, or we're changing back... We're changing the setting to like not vilify entire species of people.
Yeah.
Right, which is understandable, but a lot of people are panicking, and a lot of people had similar like sentiments when Pathfinder 2nd Edition came out. They're like, "Oh, Paizo, I guess, is just saying fuck us, right? Look at this new game. Look at Finder or whatever." Yeah, number of TTRPGs players hate any kind of change, and I think that's the thing.
That's what it seems like.
People don't like when you change their favorite game, pretty much. They don't like that they can't hate the enemies anymore. And I think it's also just a thing, right, of misplaced guilt. Of, like, people are making it bad to make orcs villains. Well, you in the past played a game where the orcs were the villains and you didn't think about it, and you defeated the orcs and it was a great time and you had a lot of time with your friends. Well, now how are you supposed to view that past, like, memory when everyone's like, oh, you can't do that with orcs anymore, right? And so people are kind of getting guilt or feeling pressured to feel guilty about, like, good games they've had in the past, right?
Yeah. I think that's actually a very interesting point. Because then it all kind of turns down to, like, the people who are actively saying that, I'm always really confused about, like, are you just fully delving into, like, the lore in the book? Are you not making your own games? Are you playing firmly from, like, the adventure paths, like, in Galarian or Faerun? Do you not, like... Because the people who would complain and are be like, ugh, I can't vilify these monster races, they never sound like they're playing, like, vanilla Galarian or vanilla Faerun. I don't know.
To
I know
a
people
degree
do
they
that,
are, because like orcs were created by Grumsh in D&D to be evil. You know, they're warfaring. Yeah. They kill people. That's what they do. That's what they were made to do. You know.
Yeah.
The problem with that is ideas of prejudice around sentient races, and people kind of equate that to like real world things, and it doesn't have to be that way, right? Because it's not a new concept by any means. Fantasy has always been a thing, and the different people's, like, there's stories that are so old talking about like two people that have been prejudiced against, and the whole point of the narrative is to break those boundaries and to find common ground.
Because I feel like, at least if I was in charge of, say, like, I was a DM and I did that, I made a game with, like, alright, from book, orcs and goblins are like this, and then another thing comes out changing it, I feel like, oh, hell yeah, campaign set, like, maybe 50 to 100 years after, and then actually unpack how that happens. Like, what's the effects of this, of, like, nah, this was a giant misconception. That'd be a really interesting campaign, like, if you're in that moment of, like, ooh, yeah, this is a story moment I could make.
I don't think it needs to necessarily be a misconception. It can just be something culturally different between peoples that might, like, not necessarily blend well together, you know?
Yeah.
It's kind of like the idea of druids versus civilized society, where it's just like, imagine, right? This happens in our world. You're sitting in your house, you're enjoying your AC, you're playing your video games, and then someone's telling you, like, your AC is destroying the environment. There are more like environmentally safe ways you can do this, which involves, you know, like building a mudroom basement in your house or something that costs like a lot of work and something you just can't be bothered to do, or, you know, something that you thoroughly enjoy but you can't do it anymore because it ruins the environment, you know. And that's something that's just like two ideals that just cannot coexist in some sense. I think that's fine. And I think the whole point of these narratives is fine. The idea of cultures that are at war with each other, but maybe there's some common ground that can be reached, or maybe it's just something where you have to deal with the reality that sometimes there's some people you just can't get along with because you don't agree with how they do things.
Yeah.
And I feel like people falsely equate these controversies and make them super, like, it's like the idea of the warring orcs, right? Because the warring orcs have had a culture, despite being, you know, created by Grumsh in D&D, for instance. I'm not super familiar with Paizo, or Paizo's lore, so I can't speak too much on that one, but D&D's I know at least somewhat. Like, Grumsh made them, they're violent, and they make this warfaring society, but they also, in those settings, had culture, had things. The thing is they were a raid-based culture, where they get their food, supplies, everything from stealing and killing other people around them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like animal behavior, you know, right? Like, there's animals that do that. And it's a way of living, for sure. Not one that is conducive to society, but one that works for them and has allowed them to survive. That is something that is, in a sense, like, not wrong and plausible why you would constantly go up against orcs. But people look at that and they're like, oh, so you're saying that all orcs, like, if you play an orc, you must be evil. Or if orcs are in your game, they're just savage brutes that kill anyone and, you know, don't have a soul or anything. Like, people, when you describe certain things, people will suddenly take it to the worst end. And this is something that's very common in culture in general.
When instead you could just be like, yeah, no, this might be the culture, but you can also be raised in a different culture and have a different upbringing and not feel that way. Like that with orcs and half orcs in fantasy settings. And also, I'm sitting here realizing this is so interesting, specifically in the aspect of this argument has been tried to put towards like something like Warhammer. Like, it was a fucking video a while back, the extra credits like orc fantasy race argument they made. It was really fucking bad. It was a really bad take of essentially, I feel this way. I like these. This is how I view these minority groups. They remind me of this fantasy race, and you're like, that's a little,
yeah.
I don't know about that one, bud. But the other main point is specifically, they mention 40k orcs, and like talk about how 40k orcs are in this aspect, and they were doing this thing where they were trying to make this argument of why do you have to fight the orcs? Why, like, you know, they're not like, or they're entities, they're creatures, and it's like, no, and you can't ascribe that to like a war game, because the point of a war game is that everybody is trying to murder each other, and so there is absolutely no opening for peace or diplomacy. And the arguments when people try to pin it against like orcs being an all downright evil race, Dark Eldar being an all evil race, the Drow arguments are not put on the Dark Eldar because they're actually very deserving of their reputation of being like that. It's very interesting to me that this is kind of just the game you play when it's the idea of a tabletop game where you role play as these people, or a game where you're just trying to kill them all.
Right. I mean, yeah, and there's definitely that aspect to it as well. It's like, it'd be like someone playing Civ, right? And then be like, you can't go to war with anyone from like a minority culture or something in this game. That's just morally incorrect. And it's just like, that's not the point of the game.
The point of the game is you're, you know, raising a civilization and warring with other people.
Yeah. But even in like tabletop sense, it's okay to have villains because you're going to anyway. there's no difference in having necessarily like a culture that is incompatible with like what we would view as moral culture, and like just fighting the rich wealthy individuals, right? But
Yeah.
people ascribe that there are certain people that are okay to hate versus not hate, and it's so backwards because it's the exact opposite of what they're trying to fix. You know what I mean? They're like, you can't hate orcs because they're reminiscent of like African culture, which isn't true.
It's not true.
But people say it because like it has qualities of this, and it's just it's unequatable because they may have some things, because whenever humans make something, it's in reference to something they understand as concepts.
And things will always ascribe parallels even when it's not really meant.
Right. But then they'll say, but it's okay to like fight rich wealthy merchants or something like that, you know. Even though having money, being successful, like, people don't realize how hard some people work to like make a lot of money, and what some people do with that amount of money. Some people look at some business magnates and they're like, oh, look how rich they are because they own several businesses. It's like, that person might not have a lot of actual personal wealth. It's all in stuff that they've built up that they can do. Yeah, sure, they're well off. They're more well off than anyone, but not to like an egregious degree that you could say Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk are, where Elon Musk can literally just buy a whole like one of the biggest media outlets and then just start fucking around with it like a kid, you know?
Yeah. Completely fucking with it. I think it's just an interesting difference of mediums, because it definitely feels like it's a different argument ascribed to like, and a different issue that comes up when you're playing a tabletop roleplay game where you're directly playing these characters, role playing with people from like such like races and cultures, where it's just like it's a little different and in an interesting way that I've noticed. And it's personally be a very funny idea to me that when people try to ascribe the same argument with like D&D and Galarian and how they're impacting stuff, and trying to hit Warhammer with it, where you're like, this is a different medium, dog. This is not the same thing. Zero people in Warhammer can be exempt from the war because everybody sucks so bad that there's an argument to fight them. Everyone's the bad guy.
But like the same thing could be said in like Underdark or the Darklands, you know, like in such an inhospitable environment, they need to resort to these kind of cultural things to survive because there's no like natural resources you can easily get. Food is very scarce. If they weren't kind of constantly whittling their own numbers down, in a sense, the whole culture might like fall, you know. There's situations, right? And people are not okay with anything that feels like racism in any sense when they're completely unwilling to recognize some like aspects in tabletop. These beings need to live in a certain way to exist at all, right? Like, look at mind flayers. Mind flayers only propagate through use of the things, which literally involves taking other sentient races and putting the little squiggly thing in their eye and turning them into mind flayers. That's the only way as a species they can exist.
Mind flayers, horrific.
And the same thing was with Drow. They lived literally in a super inhospitable environment that they need to resort to these kinds of things because it's the only thing that works. Even if you say like Lolth is the one that makes like Drow like this, and to a degree it is, like religiously speaking, it is. But you can also argue
few positive things about Lolth.
Yeah, but you could also argue it's also just a product of their environments. And the same thing could be said for orcs. And it could be a thing of like, orcs just don't see any reason not to go raiding because literally there's free food. You know what I mean? Like, why would they bother going and growing agriculture and doing all kinds of things, and sometimes they can't, because also in a lot of fantasy, orcs live in blasted land territories.
True, like I was going to say, like some wasteland shit of like there's literally nothing they can, or even just that idea of like imagine that you just live your life doing this like raiding kind of deal, and then someone's like, hey, you know what? If you just kind of like plant some seeds, build some stuff, you can make a little village. And you're like, well, I could, but you also keep like gallivanting big ass carts full of food and valuables in front of my land every day. So like, which one am I gonna do?
Exactly, you know, and so like that is the position, right? And that is the understandable position of people who don't necessarily want that to change about their games. And I mean, you kind of hit on it earlier a little bit. They can just not. They can just not go with the changes, and they can just do the things that they like are familiar with. You know, do the same kinds of things.
It's your game. Just say nuh-uh and keep going. As long as everyone at your table is having a good time and enjoying themselves, power to you. Like it doesn't matter what a Paizo isn't gonna like break into your home and wag their finger at you like in your own home.
Right.
It's your own shit.
And that's the same thing with the remaster, is people are like, they're changing the game, I don't like the changes. Then play the old game, because most of the stuff works generally the same, you know, speaking. Yeah, sure, they are retooling some of the spells, they're changing some of the mechanics of the game, sure. But you can still get access, and Archive and Ethos will still have all the old rules and everything, and your books are not going to just disintegrate and disappear. And old copies of those books will still exist, because my god, can you find old TTRPGs that are no longer being serialized?
That was always the argument I thought was stupid for people being really upset about it. Is like they're changing everything, like they're making the game worse. It's like, okay, then don't change it.
Yeah,
it's not. They're not making you. Just be like, nah, and then continue with the books you own. It's not gonna erase it. Like
that's
it
the good thing about
can't
tabletop.
erase it.
They can't take the game from you.
Literally can't. Like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Much to some companies' chagrin, because I still really like that story of the guys who were the higher ups of who own the Star Trek IP, trying to deal with the Star Trek RPG, where they kept asking questions of, like, can we just not have character creation? Because what if they make a character that doesn't fit Starfleet? It's like,
right.
Then it doesn't matter. It's in their own home. Do you understand that? But more of like, yeah, it's in your own home. They can't do anything about it. Just go wild, have fun, play the game. I still really like that one comment you got of someone being like, oh, so they're ruining the game. For people who disagree, right. I don't care. It's like, no, expand on it. Please tell me why this is a problem. I'm so curious. I want to know, like, break it down. Why do you think this is a problem? And so then I can just like explain to you gently. Then don't do it. You don't have to. No one's forcing you.
Right, but it's that same thing again of like false equation where they will be like, okay, so then nothing I like will ever be produced again. You know? Or like, I see. So now I just can't enjoy my game because everyone around me will tell me that the way I'm playing is wrong. It's just like, if you know people who are doing that, then those people are just assholes. It doesn't really matter. You know.
And yeah, don't talk to them. Just if someone's like, you're not using the remaster, didn't you know it worked like this? Then we're just be like, why are you being an asshole right now? Fucking stop it. Don't talk to me like that.
Yeah.
I'm a human being. I'm an adult. I'm a grown man. Don't speak to me that way. What are you, a child?
I have said
people just think he's dead.
Many times on this channel, Pathfinder's is D&D but better in every way. Many times. Not once have I said, if you're playing D&D, you should feel bad. Or if you're playing D&D, you should just play Pathfinder instead. I've never once said that. I've always said I like Pathfinder. I think it's objectively better. I think it's a good game. But if you enjoy D&D, play D&D.
I have people who really enjoy 5e, and I always offer Pathfinder as a thing of like, hey, if you ever get to that point of you feel like you're just tired of 5e or like you want more things, Pathfinder 2nd Edition is like the best game for you. But if you're still enjoying it, then have fun, like go wild. It's just, I feel like that's what you can get out of games like Pathfinder is if you ever feel like you actually just want more to your game, you can just kind of move on. Like, this is the sequel to 5e. But that doesn't mean you need to do it right now. There are plenty of very good reasons why you wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah.
I was literally talking to someone who had a very good reason about that. He's running a 5th edition game, and or he's playing in one or running it, something like that. And I was like, "Oh, have you ever done Pathfinder?" He's like, "Yes, I love Pathfinder. I want to bring my table to 2e. The problem is they're all still learning 5th edition and are just barely wrapping their heads around it." And so I'm like, fair, okay.
Yeah.
Don't like overwhelm them. That's a fair reason to not make the jump right now.
Sure. And like, you can still like, you can just like the setting, you know, you can like the campaign books, and converting is a pain in the ass. So you just play the 5th edition game instead. There's a lot of reasons why people can enjoy the games they like and it doesn't bother anyone, but people have such a strong negativity bias that when someone says any kind of criticism, people innately take that as you're saying their game is bad or it's terrible. You know, people can't wrap their heads around the idea that people can criticize something that they themselves thoroughly enjoy. You know,
sometimes you just feel differently about things.
I do it all the time. Maybe a little unwarranted at times and something I need to work on. But there's definitely lots of times where I'm enjoying something, but I have very strong criticisms about, you know, what it is that we're playing. Legend of the Five Rings is an example. I liked the game. I think there's a lot of very interesting things. I think they have a lot of very interesting concepts. But there's some aspects to the game that like, when I say I couldn't play it all the time, that's not saying it's a bad game. That's saying it's a game that I can enjoy for a bite-sized amount of time and then go on to either a more core game or just a different game, you know? It's like, we're playing Remnant 2 right now. The game's super fun. I thoroughly enjoy that game. I'm not going to play this game for 1,000 hours. That's not me saying the game is bad. It's me saying the game just doesn't have 1,000 hours worth of content for me personally. And that's the same thing for Legend of the Five Rings. I have like maybe like a 20 session, maybe like a 40 session campaign in me for Legend of the Five Rings. And then I think I'll be pretty solid. I might come back to it later.
I think it's a pretty solid like game like that where you can just play a campaign for it. But primarily that game has that problem of it. You just need to understand what the fuck it's talking about. Some of the rule stuff is very interpretive, and you have to get the flow. You have to get everyone in that perfect Zen flow state. And then once you get that, pops off. But the climb there is going to be a struggle.
Right. And it's also just a game that like doesn't offer a lot of aid in a sense. The game doesn't prop the players up because it's so vague with like how the opportunity system works, for instance. Because they give you tons of examples, but no framework. They never say, this is the most it can do, and this is the least it can do. They're like, here's some examples, and they kind of range all over the place. And so you kind of have to like extrapolate what is okay versus not okay for intention of the system. And that just feels like a lot of opportunity for failure more than success.
I really like the opportunity system, but I can
too.
understand why people were struggling with it. Because I felt like I was able to come up with really fun uses of opportunity every time, but not everyone can do that. And honestly, it's because I have played a system where there's something like this. I just understand like more of the limits, but I'll say, at least in this aspect, it's a little less useful than the version of the Star Wars game. Because the Star Wars game, I think, actually has things you can spend it on. But also you can like suggest things to your DM, but they can easily be like, nah, pick from the list. Or, oh, that'd be do like this one, and like that kind of deal.
Yeah.
It has rules for it.
And I don't know. Like I said, I like the opportunity system. I like the idea of players adding stuff into the narrative that can be helpful. You know, the problem is players inherently are very goal oriented. They want to complete their goal. So they want to add things that can add to their goal rather than something that seems unrelated. So You know, it was very hard to get that across. And I think when we were playing it, everyone was trying to game the system in a game that's not about gaming the system. It's a game about running a narrative, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why I think games like Pathfinder actually can be more narratively, like, freeing, because you don't... you understand what is supposed to work and not work. A character in Pathfinder is never going to try acrobatics if they have no acrobatics. They understand their character is not very acrobatic. But in Legend of the Five Rings, you're like, oh, I don't have a lot of acrobatics, but I have very high earth. So can I do this in an earthy way? And the GM's like, no, I guess. I don't know how you're trying to flip over this with an idea of, like, solidity or bulwark or stability, you know? And they'll try to weasel their way to, like, make it so that they can essentially roll anything for anything, right? Like, can I use fire for every skill check? And that gets tiring on the GM's side to be like, can they? I don't know. They're trying to weasel their way to allow themselves to do everything. And that's not necessarily the game's intent. Where in Pathfinder, you don't worry about that, because what your character can and can't do is on their character sheet. And people see that, and I've seen this very same thing. They're like, I don't like when my character sheet tells me I can't do anything. And some people take the idea that I can't do anything as like, well, I guess then there's just things I can't do. And it's like, yes, your character's not meant to do everything. There's supposed to be things your character is good at versus not good at. That's the whole point of having a character in the first place. They're supposed to have specific skill sets.
And you have a party that will do, like, that'll fill in the blanks for you.
Exactly. Can it be good, though? Yes. I like the opportunity system. As I've said, I think it's very interesting. It's very ingenuitive. And I think that being able to do collaborative storytelling, it's one of the best ways I've seen in TableTalk, where the players can actually add to the story and add something. When you guys were just adding statues to the fucking head exorcist room and then turning him into a sob story, it was hilarious. You know?
So fun.
And it was a lot of fun.
I think stuff like that is such a fun game, but yeah, I think it would be a hurdle for us to sit down and learn it. And it's also not a game I'd be like, all right, fuck Riptide, 5 Rings time.
Yeah.
It's not one of those games. But it'd be like a thing of, if you approach with, hey, we're going to actually sit down and do a 5 Rings campaign, and be like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, we're going to do 10, 15 sessions of 5 Rings. Everyone would probably be like,
I would say
cool,
yes.
Awesome. That'd be cool. So,
yeah,
you
like,
know.
oh, this is fun.
I could do it. I would like it. I think there's a lot it offers. It's definitely in a genre I'm not super familiar with. I'm not very Miram or, like, Shogunate style.
Me neither.
Not stuff I'm super familiar with. Kind of like Lancer. I'm not super sci-fi-y in stuff, so, like, creating a universe was very difficult. And something I could get better at for sure, but it was just something that, like, was a hurdle I because it's just outside of genres I normally participate in.
Yeah, so. I'm a sci-fi guy, so I can fuck with Lancer really easily, but fantasy sometimes is a bit more of a struggle. Often I kind of, when I develop fantasy stuff, I always lean more in the Elder Scrolls or Warhammer Fantasy style, where either there's some undercurrent, like, secret weird tech shit, or undercurrent weird psychedelic spiritual shit.
Yeah.
So those are my vibes. I really like those versions of fantasy, but, like, other than that, I'm not as big of a high fantasy guy as you are. I know that's your wheelhouse.
Well, see, that's the thing, though, right? I don't like medieval high fantasy all that much, honestly speaking. I prefer modern fantasy. I prefer, you know, tech stuff and fantasy stuff kind of intermixed into one thing. I'm not... If you were to give me a Final Fantasy setting or a D&D setting, I'd go with a Final Fantasy setting more often than not.
Yeah.
And that's just because that's my preference. I'm not a medieval guy. I've never been a super medieval kind of weeb person. My fiance is, so, you know, like, I definitely have seen that, and I've been to Ren fairs, and I've done LARPing, and I had tons of people who are like super obsessed with the idea that times were simpler back then. I wish I could live in the settings. It's like yes, so that you could cut your foot one day out in the field and then die of an infection.
That's the dream.
A week later, right? And of course that's also one of those false equivalent things where it's like you just took the worst scenario possible. Tons of people lived to old age in that time period.
It actually wasn't that bad. It wasn't as great, but there were some problems. But like all the shit you hear, just like isn't all completely true. Medieval peasants bathed. They lived decent lives. It's the thing I always like have to remind like some people of, or just need to remember, is all people throughout history are still people. They all think like you. They all like have the same emotions and wants as you. They just live in a different year.
Yeah, for the most part. Obviously, medieval people didn't want video games as much as we do now.
Oh, of course. Like, but they still have those those wants to belong, those feelings of this is an unfair system, those moments of those emotional bits we all get. And you get little remnants of it with the fact of how absolutely long-standing the tradition of signing your name blank was here has prevailed in human history.
Right.
Or the age-old game of hiding drawings of dicks places. Yep. Do you know any historical monuments? They move something and they find a little dick pic in there. Yep. It's happened a lot. It's great. A lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's why I'm always super flabbergasted when people are like, the world is changing. It's like, the world's in a cycle. We go through cycles of things where, we value different things highly or not. Like, imagine, right? We're currently in an age where everything is kind of being sanitized in a different way than typical, but still sanitized. People are not wanting to see like certain acts or certain things that affect their morals as much. But see, the same thing happened back when the country was like getting fully civilized and like built up, and like the church was everywhere, and Christian families and Christian ideals and all that kind of stuff, where they kind of sanitized everything super heavily. And that gave rise to the dark fantasy, dark era of creating things that were so just messed up because people were tired of the over sanitization of things, and we got there and we got really high with it. We crossed some lines that we weren't comfortable with before, and now we're pulling back. And now we're like, that's kind of not cool, and we're sanitizing again, and we're just gonna get to a point where everything feels too squeegee clean, too like you can't say anything about anything, or you're gonna get on someone's bad side, and that's where the new fucked up shit is gonna come up, and we're gonna have another era of grimdark, essentially.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, Fantasy High is a very fun version of fantasy. I do really like the worlds that feel like, it's like a fantasy world that is developed scientifically. I really like those where it's just, you have magic and stuff. That doesn't mean you can't progress past the medieval age. You can keep going.
For
it's
sure.
Really fun.
I like when magic is made sciencey. I
feel like it is fun.
When they're able to make it into something that's like understandable, but not like super accessible, because that's a big problem with magic, right? Is it feels like a win button in a lot of settings where it's like, well, why are there no like conquering warlords? Why is it always this wizard in a tower who can do all these crazy things in Underworld? It's like, well, there are stories with conquering warlords. It's hard to say, this one guy who's really good at fighting is as powerful as guy who's harnessed like souls of an entire nation to make a mini sun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it feels like it's just like, they can just do whatever. But when a setting actually goes through the paces, makes it something where you understand that magic has limits, that's when it feels better. That's when I like it more. When it's not as an easy win button.
I think it's interesting because there's also the absolute polar opposite, but also in a different way. Because the fucking Guilty Gear setting is a setting where technology caused a giant fucking problem, it like just it almost like ruined the earth. And then like magic was introduced by these like weird wizard people, and then everyone was like, oh, okay, well, let's figure out how this magic works so then we can replace everything tech did with magic. And so that's how you get Guilty Gear with characters who have like they hold up their fingers and there's a rune that appears and that's a cell phone.
Yeah.
And also just like everybody can learn magic really easily. It's super accessible. And it's developed like in the cutscenes for Guilty Gear, they have developed cities, they have like cars and really nice skyscrapers, but it's all built and like created through magic.
Right. Well,
There's
I
no
mean,
electricity.
even then,
I think it's a fun outcome of it.
In Guilty Gear though, there are limits. Not anyone can just do anything crazy with magic.
You have to work for it.
Making magic cell phone, sure, like cantrips, yeah, give everyone cantrips. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But you know, like higher level spells, things that are like devastating, that should be something that is hard to achieve.
Oh yeah, you have to like work for it. But it's basically it's wizard college with free tuition is what it is. You don't have to make the decision to go to wizard college, but the barrier of entry is really low. You can start, but are you going to graduate? Who knows?
Well, yeah, and I like the idea of people not wanting to learn magic because it's just too much effort. Yeah, I like the idea.
It's also something that was hit. It's one of my favorite ideas of Batman starting a podcast on them. We finally name, which is insane, and he fights you with cubes, and he's now a character. It's very fun. As someone who's been a long-time Guilty Gear lover, like lore guy, it's very entertaining watching Strive develop stuff. But I think it's really interesting, specifically because the Kingkiller Chronicles is a world like that. It has a very hard like magic system with magic is so sciencey. It is literally like it's an offshoot of physics.
Right.
Super interesting way, and it brings up something that I thought was so cool in a fantasy world of the main character. It works at like this artificing place. Like he puts in hours and creates magical items and sells to people. That's how he can like make money to afford college. And he does his best in like the beginning. He's making some really cool items, and his like teacher is like, this is immensely impressive, this is so cool. Here's the problem, who's gonna fucking buy this?
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, one guy in the world might want this. And like, understandable. It's a really cool like weapon. It does this awesome thing. Hell yeah. This is cool for you. But like, what people want are lanterns that they don't have to light. They want boxes to refrigerate their food. And it's like a very mundane items. And it's like, yeah, that's what everybody in town wants. Because it's easy to manage. It's not that much work. It's not that much money. And it makes your life easier. It's like, that is such a cool way to flavor an artificer like style character. Like, yeah, I'm really good at making minor magical effects because that's what people want to buy. Not everyone wants to buy a cool cannon because they're like, that's a bit much, man. I just want a fucking light. I just want a refrigerator.
Right.
Can you make like a microwave for me? Like, that'd be pretty cool.
And see, and that's the problem is like games like D&D or Pathfinder even, honestly, they don't demonstrate how difficult magic is. And to be fair, it doesn't really seem difficult in the setting, right? Because there's many ancestries that can just get a level 1 feat that gives them magic, for instance, access to a cantrip or whatever.
True.
But they don't really demonstrate what makes a wizard. I literally had a guy at Adventures League tell me, he's like, isn't magic just like remembering the spell? Can I just like remember the spell? And it was very difficult for me to explain, like, well, no, because the idea is you create mental constructs and it's something that's very difficult. It would be the same as saying, all right, recite to me the schematics for the Starship Enterprise.
Oh, I remember that. I remember that conversation you had.
Yeah. And yeah, prestidigitation, definitely the most OP spell in the real world. So many things you could do with it. And
literally, I would love to have that. It's so handy. I don't give a shit about casting fireballs. When am I gonna cast fireballs?
I would cast fireballs.
I don't have any. I don't want to get arrested. But like, there's so many uses for prestidigitation or minor illusion stuff. It's like, oh, it's handy.
And that's always what I've been fascinated with. I've never been a big like blaster caster style player. whenever I get magic in a game, I love playing characters that have tons of utility, that can do very interesting or unique things, or create kind of setups that are very fun, like in combat. I've never been someone to be like, I just hit them with my highest damage spell over and over. I find that boring, even if it's like optimal damage wise. I just, that's just not the kind of stuff that I would do if I had magic. I'd make magic that's very, very interesting. Like, sure, have some blastiness when you need blastiness, but not like the whole kit. So, but back onto our initial topic of like why people are leaving or saying they're leaving Pathfinder, when, you know, honestly, a lot of these people aren't actually leaving. They might be like, I'm not playing, and then someone's like, hey, do you want to play the game? And like, fine, I'll play with you, I guess.
And then they do that thing where they're like, I'm not having fun, I promise.
Right.
I guess you are.
Shut up, Jeff.
Yeah. It's like that thing of, I think the main point of it, that it's something that always bothers me, just in general, is like, it's people who, when the moment they join a thing, they're like, all right, here's where it stops. This is the line, no more change.
Right.
All these changes, all these new books, so cool. Don't do it again, though. I'm always like, ugh, it's so fucking annoying.
And people just don't like change. Plain and simple. They just don't.
That's all it is.
Because they feel like any change means the things they like don't matter or aren't going to be worked on, or they can't like new things, you know. And I'm always a big fan of change. There's some things that you can be sad that they're gone. Like alignment, I liked personally. I understand the restrictiveness of it, but I feel like that's only restrictiveness that people put on their characters. You know what I mean? There's nothing in alignment that ever said your character can't do a thing. It's more of your alignment is a representative of how your character acts. The only things that I agree is like all barbarians need to be chaotic. It's like, that's dumb.
Yeah.
I enjoy the idea of the philosopher warrior, you know, a person who understands when is the time to get angry versus keep their calm. I think that's very interesting and a very good character idea.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a lawful barbarian, for instance.
You played a noble barbarian once, and I thought it was a very cool idea.
And for people like, I don't like it because it means I can't, like, if we're playing in a good game, I can't do evil things. It's like,
that's your real reason.
You know? But I like it because it's a way to help frame how you're making your character. It's an interesting question. And we learned in Legend of the Five Rings, actually, that having a questionnaire in your game actually really helps develop characters.
Holy shit, it's such a good thing to put. It was so nice.
Giving players a frame to like what they feel about things, what they think about things. It's stuff that I've done in my games before. We had what's your favorite food in prior games.
It's a good one.
And it works. It worked really well. It helped flesh characters out because someone might say, I love chocolates. I am just a big chocolate nut. And every time we go somewhere, I want to look for a new place. And our person's like, I like lentils. Not because they taste good, but because we grew up on a farm and that's what we had. And so it like fleshes out their backstory, you know. There can be all kinds of ways that like simple questions that don't require very specific answers, I feel are really good for developing characters.
Yeah, I think it's just that thing of asking the questions to humanize is such a important aspect that could be very easily ported over. I mean, I'm curious if like adapting the Five Rings to Galarian and like to Pathfinder, that would be so cool.
I think so.
Handy.
Sure.
I think it'd be very easy. It's just cutting out like the terms and the stat stuff of like, you know, specific very tied to Bushido and your clan and all that, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it would just need to be reframed, but I think the idea of the 20 questions, I think, works really well.
It works so well. But yeah, it's those aspects that you can like bring into your character that are human, because it carries over in other games. Like there's always one of that hits is the question of when's your character's birthday.
Right.
Because then that also leads into is this something your character tracks? Is it something they actually like to think about? Because, I mean, there are people in the world who genuinely don't like their birthday, and they have, like, reasons for it. And it often can lead to some very interesting characterization.
Yeah. And you know what's funny, too, is, like, even the aspect of the head exorcist, when you guys were, like, adding on to his story by throwing more nonsense into his room, was something that made that character way more fleshed out than he ever would have been in, like, a normal TTRPG setting, I feel like.
He would have just been an old man quest giver. That's all
Right.
he would have been. And now he is a man with crippling self-esteem issues and is going through some of the worst moments of his life, and the only thing he has is living on a dream that isn't real and is fading before his eyes. And that is sad and depressing and very cool.
So,
you have that moment of like, oh, I want to help him. He needs a win. Can we give him a win?
So like that kind of stuff I think is very interesting and is something that I would like to see further developed. I think if that could be given a better framework and to be made into something that could be more applicable, I think, and not gamifiable, which is hard, I think that would be good. But yeah, and it's funny how details make a story better, and I feel like that is the thing. Maybe I should definitely make a video on that, how adding details makes a character better, because literally small details is literally the difference between people in some situations.
Yeah.
You know, imagine modern samurai, future samurai guy wearing high-tech, samurai armor and wielding plasma sword. But at the end of his sword, there's a little keychain with a plushy dog on it. Suddenly, you're like, what is that? Does this guy like plushy dogs? Does he have a kid? That suddenly just took the idea and turned him into a character instantly.
Yeah, now there's like the added questions that you're wondering about.
Mm-hmm. It's a strange characterization, but like how does this work? And that's I think what's fun, and that's why when it comes to this idea that people are leaving because of change and everything, people don't understand like how stilted playing the same type of TRPG can be when nothing new or interesting is fleshed into it at all, and aren't willing to like look at it. They're like, I enjoyed the way games were played back then, I'm gonna play those games. But there's so many times where even in like the OSR stuff, they're like, okay, but we saw this mechanic in this game that I kind of liked, and so I incorporated it into the old style,
Yeah.
And it's like, it's completely okay to enjoy things in the state that you found them and like them. That's literally why World of Warcraft released classic servers again, because people enjoyed the classic style more, and honestly for good reason, because they've just trashed WoW with all the stuff they've added into it. But
any other game, I'd be like, is it really that important to have a classic? For everything I hear of what classic WoW is, I'm like, fair. Immensely fair.
Classic WoW was, I think, the dream of MMOs that have been destroyed by corporate like involvement with MMOs, because original WoW, you had to find people to party to dungeon, and I don't like that, because like, fuck talking to people online. But people enjoyed that thoroughly. They enjoyed the aspect of like actually asking people, because it involved socializing. You actually had to communicate with people, and that caused a lot of people got married because of WoW. A lot of people, substantial amount, like thousands of people have been married due to WoW.
True.
And there was also like loot. Rare loot was legitimately rare, and finding it was really, really cool. And there were some items that it didn't matter how much you farmed for it, you might not ever see the item. And that makes those items legendary.
Stories of that. This is the stories of how long people have worked for certain items.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is like, I understand it sucks when you put a goal in a game that's unachievable because you're like, I want that sword. But at the same time, it makes the item have value. When everyone has the special item, it's no longer special.
And it's just an item you can grab. And
It's
like,
just an
you
item.
don't have those moments in MMOs where you're like, holy shit, he has what?
Yeah, right? And that's like a wow factor. And that's motivating because you're like, I want to play. I want to see what I can find. Maybe I'll find something cool one day, you know? I'll
That's
get
a
the
good
rare
pun
drop.
you made, by the way.
I
The
don't even
wow
watch puns.
factor. World of Warcraft, wow.
Who are you?
You made the joke.
Devin went to work. Where he's not here right now.
I was playing Remnant.
I
with
did it.
him before you
I
joined.
said a legitimate thing. You pointed it out.
Doesn't take away the fact you said it.
Nah, you're seeing faces in the clouds, my friend.
They look like real faces.
There was no pun.
The chat and comments can decide.
But you know, it's a thing of right. No one is wrong in this situation when it comes to if people don't like the direction of Pathfinder Remaster, then just play old Pathfinder. Saying I'm leaving, I guess, is wrong because it's pointless. It's silly. And people also forget that there's going to be tons of people who like pre-remaster Pathfinder and are going to just make their own third-party content for it. And Paizo will be like, sure, totally, do it on Pathfinder Nexus. Go ahead. We allow you to. That's completely fine.
MMOs, you can make some solid friends on there. Can't relate as someone who's never gotten into MMOs at all, and the only one I play is Warframe, which doesn't really lend itself super well to that.
Yeah.
You can, but like the most I've ever done socializing in Warframe was trade market and chatting with people in mission chat of, hey, do we want to keep doing this mission? Now you're still grinding? Gotcha.
Oof. But, yeah. But that thing is, that's actually a really good example.
Yeah.
Of literally 2 Final Fantasy games, 2 of their MMOs, but such a different like experience coming out of like the removing of an element, you know, for the sake of ease of access, you know, for the people who don't want to, because there's a surprising amount of people who want to play MMOs single player pretty much, which is
anytime I did, that's me.
That's pretty much me, and.
Yeah.
It's something I definitely need to get over because I feel like I could have more fun. I just don't trust people online, I think is the biggest problem. Also, like, people who know me nowadays or people who see me online might not know or understand. There was a point in my life I was very socially awkward and very, like, not good with people. Like, really bad. And I got over it by, like, studying people, understanding people, and like breaking them down. It's one of the things I'm good at, is breaking things down and kind of getting to the core components of it. And I developed the personality and like the way I do things now by doing that. But the problem with online conversations are I can't break things down because there's nuance in written words that you can't get unless you're talking someone face to face. And so, to me, there's a strong disconnect in messaging people that socially I struggle to understand. I need to, like, get that subtext from people to understand the conversation.
Personally, I'm always in the camp of, I'm usually listening or watching something in my other monitor if I'm playing an MMO. I don't want to talk to another person because then I have to pause my YouTube video. That's all it is. It's like, I don't want to sit here and just listen to like random MMO audio, yawn, boring. I want to listen to this weird like video essay I found. So I also used to be horrifically socially awkward, and then I did a major that required me to be incredibly social and get past those barriers, and now I don't really care anymore. I'll talk to whoever. I'll do whatever I need to do to get the fucking job done. I'll knock on random people's doors to ask if I can film in their home. Fuck it, I'll do it.
Yeah, it's crazy, and yeah, Phoenix, I think that's very fair. Of just if a game doesn't motivate you to do something, you're not going to do it. And in this case, it's social interaction. I think that's one of the fun things about being a content creator, and something that will probably help me is like, I've been on Twitter, honestly. Now I've been on Twitter a lot more, interacting a lot more. Not in the last week because I was busy, but been very interactive, been talking to people I honestly probably wouldn't have ever engaged with before. And also I've been watching Bricky's his the 1-bit shooter game.
I don't remember which video that was.
I haven't watched a ton of videos recently.
Oh, BattleBit remake. Like, yeah, the fucking
Yeah, the BattleBit
Roblox like Battlefield clone that is peak. It's better than Battlefield's been in like 10 years.
And it's one of those things where it's I'm on the wrong account. I was like, why can I not find anything on my watch history? Wrong account. I'm on my YouTube account currently, my YouTuber account. But he's motivated to get on to kind of like do the chat, to kind of fuck around with it and see how it goes. And he's having a blast because there's sometimes you get some really like golden situations, and when you kind of like get into that mindset, it's understandable. And also it's one of those, like, it's funny because it's 250 player lobbies, and so winning or losing is so like not something you can manage yourself, that people just don't care, and so there's not that hyper like competitiveness. People are just running around and shooting and enjoying the game for what it is,
Literally peak Battlefield 3. It's
Right.
the same way. That's what made those games so fun, because it wasn't people just like yelling at people to get on the point stuff that always happened, but at the end of the day, you're in your squad, even just your friend squad on Discord, and you're like, all right, let's do something stupid, and you all get in a helicopter and like charge an enemy point, and just for fun.
Yeah.
That's how those games lend to it. And honestly, looking at that gameplay, that is literally just like Modern Warfare, like current Modern Warfare controls, and like how everything moves and such, just in a Battlefield setting. God damn, that game might be hype. I might need to try that.
So, I think that's an interesting thing, and I think that a lot of people have a right to like how things used to be done, not want to do a modernization, because while modernization might help some styles to play, it doesn't help all styles to play, and there's some things you lose by doing that. Heck, in the age of gaming, like, there used to be a thing where if you found something in a game, it was either because you found it or your friend told you couldn't look it up online. You could buy like a primer, or from a magazine, and people, that made secrets so huge. But secrets are so now super accessible, they're not as exciting anymore. And while that's nothing that can necessarily be helped in gaming, especially with data mining just being rampant now, there's people who've made livelihoods on data mining nowadays. It is
kind of sad that like there's that element of like there's never gonna be those like weird playground rumors of games, but it's like there's still elements of that, because I mean it's in Remnant, like there's an archetype, no one know, you know what it is, but we don't know where it is, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I've heard about that one too. There's all kinds of stuff like that, and it's one of those things where it's so, people don't want to lose some of that magic, and when people like a version of a game and they see like something new for the same thing come out that's very, very different, it obviously creates a understandable conflict of interest. You know, you don't want anything to change because you like the way it is currently, and a lot of the new things get rid of some of the things you might have liked. So these people who are leaving can be leaving for some justifiable reasons, even though sometimes their perfectly justifiable reason is masked by, I don't like the wokeness, you know what I mean? Like, it's one of those concepts where people are just not good at explaining themselves in a situation. They're not good at breaking down what they actually like about the game. And so when it comes to explaining it, they're just like, I just don't like this woke thing, because that's easy. That's a very lazy way to describe what they're actually feeling. And then people write them off because they're like, oh, people who use woke unironically, those people are cringe. And you just discount everything they say. People are lazy. It's what it boils down to in the end. People are lazy and are not respecting the earnest desires of like other people, and nor should you have to, you know what I mean? You don't need to weigh yourself down with the thoughts and ideas of others necessarily. So it's easy to write them off as well. But it creates this environment of no one listening and everyone shouting, and it feels very hostile. It's not something that I personally want to, you know, foster. I want to foster, at least on this channel here, that people can like things and dislike things and it not be a bad thing, you know. People who use woke probably are using it wrong. Sometimes they're just not. Sometimes they just are bad people, but that's so rare, right? Even in the situations where someone is just saying something that's like making them sound blatantly racist, they might not actually be that racist. It's just they've just given up all fucks and they're just doing the thing that's easiest, which is just giving up and saying, I'm the thing, I'm the one you hate all this time, you know. Because I find that very rarely are people actually as terrible as anyone ever makes them out to be.
A lot of times they're just stupid, is what it is. It's the classic age-old mantra, don't ascribe to malice what you can ascribe to ignorance. And also, yeah, actually, it's following very deep into game dev, like, circles and communities. I'm still very ingrained, because when I was a kid I wanted to be a game designer, so I studied a lot of people that were talking about game design and then like kept following them. It is very funny to see that, especially because the current game design discourse of hey gamers, don't play Baldur's Gate like this, you're playing it wrong. Where have you seen those hot takes popping up?
Maybe. I mean, I've seen it for many other things, so I can equate easily. Yeah,
it's people saying don't min-max or try to power game Baldur's Gate 3. Saying, like, you are playing the game wrong and you are doing a bad thing if you're save scumming, rolling for better stats, min-maxing. No, have failure. And then, like, my favorite take from it was Joshua Sawyer, the guy who literally created Icewind Dale, Pillars of Eternity, like those, he was the game director on those games, was then like, no, that's really dumb. Do whatever you want in the RPGs. However, as a game designer, I will do my damnedest to make it so you can't, but you should use all of those in a video game because that's what video games are. You're not actually playing a tabletop game. And he made a really good video on like breaking down why there is a difference in playing D&D and playing Baldur's Gate. It's a different experience and a different thing.
And CD Projekt Red, they're like, yeah, we got some bugginess in the game, but we're not going to fix some of that because we enjoy the game should feel like a game. It's like whenever you would call Roach to you, and Roach would sometime appear on on a house, you know.
That's funny. Like,
it's funny.
Like,
and they're like, we're not gonna remove that from the game. It should be a game. You know, even though there's
I
tons of
respect
people out there who are like, it needs to be a super immersive experience, and I don't want anything that takes me out of the experience in the game. And it's like, both are right in a sense. You can want a game that's super immersive that doesn't give immersion breaks, or you can just fuck around in a game because you don't care that much. Neither are right nor wrong. It's just your personal style. You just can't put that onus on the game designers to make the game perfect for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's the current talking point is, yeah, because there's an article saying, like, if you're min-maxing in Baldur's Gate, you're playing it wrong. I also am a person where I'm like, I'm not a person who gets immensely immersed from video games. I just like them because they're fun or the writing's really good. But I'm always like, that's a video game, and I'm about to do some video game shit. To be honest, the most immersive game I've ever played is Stalker Anomaly, that mod pack that just merges all the Stalker games. Even then, I played it like a video game in Goofy, where Vale was very disappointed in me as another Stalker fan, as I was pre-firing grenades in a building because I didn't want to deal with all the mutants inside.
Yeah.
Like, there's probably someone around that corner. Let me lob a grenade off the wall and bounce it into that room. And because I just had like 50 grenades stockpiled. It's like, that's the strat. Play it like a video game.
I don't think it is a bad buzzword. I think it can be used poorly. But I think creating an immersive experience is on the designers of what they want to do, you know?
You can strive to make an immersive experience, but like, I can definitely see, yeah, it can very easily be used poorly in that aspect of, oh yeah, we're doing this because it's immersive. Like, okay, actually, here's my example. Red Dead Redemption 2. Oh yeah, we have all these options because all this like realism, all this like the way your control, the way you do everything, it's immersive. And it's like, no, you're just making me spend an entire minute opening a chest. You're making me spend all this time to like loot a guy's body. And it's like, I get why people could find that immersive, but I'm not there and I don't care. I don't want to care. I just want to press a button and get gold up kind of thing. Oh, I found ammo. You just click a button.
Right. Yeah. And, like, understandable. A lot of it kind of boils down to, you know, like, I feel like game developers, and I think what Death Phoenix is kind of trying to say is that there's too many game developers are making a game, but are also trying to make a game that's like a game, but also immersive, and shoving immersion into games that really it just doesn't belong to. And doing things that just make games feel worse to play for no one's benefit, right?
Yeah, that's mainly how I always interpret like using immersion negatively in a game is you're doing things to make intentional game slow down because that's how it happens in real life. It's my same problem with tabletop realism. You're not making me immersed, you're just slowing the flow down. And so this is just annoying because, like, yeah, it's granted that this happens this way, but I'm not actually doing it, so I don't have to. Don't make me track arrows in real life. That's annoying. In real life, I have to. In a fucking tabletop game, all you're doing is like, all right, now go around and make a roll to see if you can gather all your arrows again. It's like, that's stupid.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is like it's stupid for you, but some people enjoy that. Weirdly. And yeah, you know, like I'm also not a fan of tracking arrows, but I'm not a fan of the nitty gritty survival kind of games. Like Stalker is a good example of a game I'm not super interested in. It just doesn't have a lot of qualities that I thoroughly enjoy. It's got things I just am not super interested in rooting around for scraps and gear and everything and being like, oh, look, a gun, and it's not that rusty. Like, man, that sounds boring as fuck to me. I rather like be like, oh, look, a gun, and it shoots lasers. That's
Fair.
What sounds fun, right?
However, now picture that statement of, oh, it's not rusty, and then add on one of the best gunplay feels in like systems you've ever touched. It feels so beautiful to get in a gunfight in that game. It is a glorious experience. However, Stalker's a game where it's like it doesn't fuck with everybody. I really like games where you're kind of up shit's creek. It's the it's the game that's designed. It's Eastern European game, Polish, Ukrainian, that general region, and it is a game made by a person who is trying to break you as the player, and I adore those. Games that have contempt for you actively trying to play it, I adore. Cruelty Squad, Darkwood, my shit. I love them. Because I like feeling an adverse relationship between the game you're playing.
I will say Dead Phoenix is what's good is subjective. So
oh yeah.
I'm not a proponent of a game that plays flawlessly and whatever. It makes a more immersive experience. A good example for this is like Super Meat Boy, right? That game kind of like redefined the genre of platforming games. It has the perfect amount of like platforming and everything, but it's not an immersive game at all. It can be a quantifiably good game and have zero immersion in it. Pokemon, it isn't immersive, even though it's a pretty well done formula, honestly speaking.
You know, I think it's also a situation where everyone just has a thing that gets them more immersed. Because, I don't know, for me, whenever I think of game immersion, I think of the kind of thing where you forget you're playing a game and you're kind of just in the zone. Like us playing tabletop, where like the real world doesn't exist. I am staring forward playing the game. Or for me, it's the same thing with video games. And always the thing that tips it over to, is this game immersive for me, is do I give a shit about what's happening in the game? Like Fallout New Vegas is one of my favorite game stories of all time. That game is immensely immersive because I really care about the story, the factions, and the characters. Morrowind, a great game because I care about what's happening, so I'm like kind of in that state of just paying attention. That's my version of what makes it immersive to me. But I feel like everyone might just have their own version of what makes a game immersive to you.
Yeah, and I mean, it kind of boils down to there's really no one wrong in a lot of these situations. It's just a conflict of ideas of people with incompatible like styles, and you know, it's, and I mean, even like what Dead Phoenix just said here is just like people make blanket statements. So essentially, is what we said earlier: people adding immersive elements in games where they don't belong. If a game is adding first person because it's immersive and not because it adds to the game, then yes, I agree. Probably shouldn't be there. But you might also look at a game that is all first person and not like it, but it is super immersive for someone who likes that game, you know what I mean?
I love, like, Cyberpunk is so it has such good cinematography, all first person. It actually has like really interesting like camera angles and like shot like a composition that only works with it being in first person. It's so cool. I love that because like not a lot of games do that. But also, you know, some people are like, I don't want to have it full first person. What's the point of spending all this time on character creation and I can't fucking see them? Which is very fair.
Yeah, very valid.
That's a valid complaint. I don't care about character creators, so like, whatever. All I care about is the voice, as long as it's not annoying.
My pain and remnant. I picked that voice.
That's
but
a shame.
It is a shame. It's one of those things that everyone has different ideas, and you might say this game is bad, but someone else thinks the game is really good. I mean, the sheer number of terrible MMOs that have players who played them for years is astounding. And for some communities like Phantom Dust, right? That's an Xbox game. It still has a very, like, fanatical community around it.
It has an active tournament scene, and that fascinates me.
And
the game it is good, though. It's a good-ass game.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's necessarily super immersive, even though there are actually some really good immersive qualities in the game. The audio track, like the music to the game, fits the setting perfectly.
I would not listen to. It's one of those soundtracks where I would not listen to outside of the game. Correct. But in the game, it fits so well.
Mm-hmm. And it feels
you can
like,
listen to it and you're like, Phantom Dust.
Yeah. you instantly in that world, you know.
Because that's me with the Cruelty Squad music. It's like this game, this music. There's literally a song. It's called Bog Business for the level Bog Business, and it's essentially toilet noises. The song,
Yeah.
but I'll say it gets you immersed for that level because the level is a disgusting swamp, and I feel like I'm in a disgusting swamp with this toilet song.
So, you know. But yeah, sure. I agree that it's one of those qualities that necessarily can't be shoved into a game. It's like tabletop. Tabletop immersion is not necessarily even for everyone. Definitely, we play with some people who are not the most immersive when it comes to tabletop necessarily. And to each their own, you know. I prefer tabletop that you can get immersed in. I prefer a very hard-hitting, like, narrative that gives you feels, but makes you feel like you're having a good time, you know. And sometimes not. Sometimes I can enjoy a game that's just very silly, you know. All kinds of nonsense going on. I can enjoy both and have a preference for one, you know.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with, like, these people who are saying they're leaving Pathfinder. They can enjoy old Pathfinder 2E and not like new remastered Pathfinder, even though they're mostly the same game. They play almost identically with a few small changes, and conversion is very simple. But you could say all of that, but they're like, but why would I go through extra effort to play a game I'm already enjoying?
Yeah,
You know?
I mean, it's the hardest part of this remaster, deadass, is just going to be remembering what things are called again.
Off Guard is going to
yeah.
destroy me.
God, it's going to be tough. That one, I don't know. I like all the other name changes. Off Guard is the one where I'm like, eh.
Off Guard was so unneeded.
It's really unneeded.
So unneeded.
I understand. I think someone in the comments of that specific Table Talk, they made a really good point. I still don't fully agree, but I'm like, that is immensely fair. That's a very good argument for why this is a good change. I just prefer flat-footed because I know it and I've heard it and I said it a lot.
Yeah. And
all the other names pretty cool though.
I can also understand why Paizo's like, but no, it's ours. We share no mechanics with any D&D game.
Which is a smart move.
Besides the basic rolling 20 adding number, which is
you can't really copyright that.
Yeah, no.
Can't copyright a dice system.
But they've given themselves a clean cut. So I'm ignoring that message.
Yeah. that's true.
But you know, like, the point of this stream was not to point at people, because that would have been easy. That could have been so easy to point at people, laugh, and be like, aha, they don't like change, so they're gonna leave the game because they're whiny babies. Because that's just the easy way to take it. That's just the easy way to look at people who disagree with you. And I'm not about that here. I'm not going to judge anyone for not wanting to put in the effort to try to understand other people. Life is difficult. You don't have to understand everyone, nor should you try necessarily. Some people don't want to be understood by you. You know, as crazy as a statement as that is. But I wanted to state very clearly that there are fair and legitimate reasons why people might not like this. You know, and even people who on the very surface are easy to write off because they say things like woke, or they say things that are very reminiscently racist, those people can still have legitimate reasons for doing things. They can also just not be as racist as they're sounding because they're just bad at wordcraft, you know what I mean? It's wrong to assume that the world is filled with people who are incapable of understanding you. And so, if anyone comes here and wants to say, I don't like the changes, I'm gonna be like, good on you. You know, play the old game, it's still there. Remaster works mostly the same. A lot of the things are really easy conversions, and if you don't like that, I mean, Paizo doesn't owe you a game designed for your preferences. So, you know,
if you do come by the channel, and to drop a comment like that, please, oh please, just detail why for me. I am so curious. I want to know that one guy blue balls me of like just not telling me how it ruins the game. Because I haven't seen many good arguments for it. I like hearing, because this is one of my personal things. I am a big fan of hearing why a thing like I really enjoy is something you don't like. Where I'm fascinated by the concept of taste and in media, where it's like, I love this thing. Oh, I hate this thing for the exact same reasons you say you like it. I think it's so fascinating. Please tell me. I just want to know. Because I personally am like, this isn't a big deal. There's nothing being changed that's substantial. That you're being hyperbolic in saying that this is ruining the game. So please tell me why you believe that if you're going to comment that. Fair. And if it's not going to be left on Cam's thing, go to my YouTube channel. Go to Glue Boy, my latest video. Give me your Pathfinder hot takes. I'll fucking take them there. Be as vitriolic as you want. I don't give a shit.
I mean, I'm not going to censor people in my chat. They can say whatever they want.
No, of course.
I only ever censored one person, and they were getting super hostile in the particular comment section and attacking people for no reason. And Rylan actually brought up a really interesting point, which is one of my concerns is that we won't be able to purchase Foundry versions for pre-remaster Pathfinder 2e. And that's fair. Understandable concern, and that's something that I can sympathize with, but also you can't force people to make things for your preference, you know what I mean? It's one of those things you're gonna have to figure it out. There's no answer other than me just saying that does suck and it's understandable, but there's no answer.
I also, the one thing I do feel is, because also I don't think it's a great point, but I can understand the annoyance of it, of having to buy new shit now. But specifically for Paizo, I think they kind of are in this special ground of you don't really need to if you don't want to. Yeah. If you're a person who needs physical media, that's a different case. I'm a PDF lover and a book hater. Get that paper out of here. So I am all over Pathfinder because perfect. So many digital tools and Archive of Nethys. I'm coasting because I don't like physical books. They're annoying. So it's not a problem for me. I can understand if you need the book in front of you to fully be able to go through anything. And especially if this was 5e, I'd be like, oh dude, fucking fair. This is really annoying. But because they don't give out their rules for free. You have to pay for it. Both digitally and physically. But Paizo just kind of gives it out. But that one I understand. That's the one critique of the remaster. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. If you have to buy new shit, that's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying to buy a game and then hey, we're changing it up, buy this new thing. Because Warhammer has had that problem and they're currently fixing it. 10th edition is strictly going away from that because you needed because in tournaments you actually needed the physical things. You couldn't use digital army builders and digital rule stuff because you couldn't modify it. So you have to have the physical books in front of you, and some armies required 4 separate books.
Yeah.
So that is ridiculous, and so moving away from that, I feel the pain as someone who played a game that did that. But Paizo's a little different.
So, to each your own. Remaster, no remaster. Tabletop in general. If I want anyone to walk away from this video with one thing, it's that here on my channel, I do my best to try to understand how you enjoy the games and like them, and I will have an honest discussion with you here on the channel. If you don't want to put in that footwork, then you're not gonna get that back. That's fine. And as long as you're keeping things mostly civilized, not being super vitriolic to each other, I have no need to censor anything. If you don't like the remaster, That's okay. That's completely fine. I like the remaster. I think it's going to be good, and I'm excited to see what Paizo has in mind to make a game that I already like better. Because I trust them as designers to do that kind of stuff.
They have a fantastic track record. I don't trust Wizards of the Coast to do the same thing, because have you seen them? See what they're doing. But yeah. Paizo is that case where they're coming out with a remaster, and I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Also, less chance that they could get fucked over in the future that would, limit new content or basically affect their ability to do business. I'm completely in support of, because please legally secure yourself so you don't have to worry. It is immensely annoying if you have to deal with legal troubles, because how expensive that is.
Yeah.
That's costly. So, but yeah, I'm actually curious. Yeah, if that's a point I see of people that are jumping to Pathfinder, then being like, oh, it's changing. Okay.
Yeah.
Which I think is also just people being vitriol, like hyperbolic in different circles, and new players not realizing it doesn't change anything substantial. It's just new names. Wizard is the only one that's getting like redesigned a bit, because just spells are changing.
Yeah, and Dace or Deus ZX was the one who said this, and I think it's true. I do think that it's frustrating for people who want to get into Pathfinder, feeling like they now have to wait, because
that's what happened with Warhammer as well.
Yeah, because of the remaster, and I do think that's a very fair and legitimate thing. But people also don't understand that Archive and Nethys exists. There's people who just don't know it exists. And you can look up stuff then. And for people who are learning, who don't want to necessarily learn something else, I mean, the only thing I could say is that if you learn old Pathfinder, new Pathfinder will make complete sense to you. Off Guard and some other name conversions are going to be difficult, sure. I agree. But if you understand the core mechanics, nothing changes. And yeah, really, that's fair. You know, even if you're like, I don't like how they changed some of these names, they now are something that I just can't intuitively pick up, because like it's no longer earth language, water language, you know, whatever. It's these weird name languages, like Thalassic, you know. Then yeah, I totally get that, and you can do that.
Yeah,
your lore, your world, you can do whatever you want. That's fair.
Yeah, it's a element that I understand, having the shakeups with names, because I literally have a big shakeup with the name Off Guard. I think it's dumb. However, also like my biggest takeaway from that part was like, oh my god, they're actually like, this is changing it in kind of my perception of certain elemental stuff. It's always one of my issues with certain elemental things was the fact of I never felt like they were locations, because none of the names of anything made it feel like it was an actual place people could live. It was just like the plane of water is just a big pool of water, like, or plane of earth is just Minecraft flatland. But now they're having these names, I'm like, oh yeah, because like intuitively I feel like this is a legit location with its legit thing. Hell yeah, I like that. But that's also because I'm actively playing a character that's very invested in researching the other planes, and it's really fun to like delve into that, because I really like planar magic stuff in fantasy games. I always think it's really neat.
And Deus, I'm pretty new. I'm not in love with Pathfinder 2 enough to say it's my primary game right now. I'm down for a shake-up to learn the English. So yeah, sure. And I mean, it doesn't have to be, you know, this is the Pathfinder channel, but it doesn't have to be your primary game. Pathfinder's my primary game, but if another game comes out that I like better, I'm going to change. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. I just coincidentally happened across this, like, the second biggest TTRPG to, like, make a channel on. And we used to play a way more obscure game than Pathfinder. Yeah, Anima Beyond
Fantasy. What a glorious game.
And I dedicated years of my life to that game. So, you know. In fact, the first video I like did on the channel when I was like restarting my YouTube channel, essentially rebranding, was an Anima Beyond Fantasy video. A lot of people were like, please more Anima content, and I would love to, but I don't have the time.
Yeah, maybe. I might. We'll see if this goes through. Once I finish this big project I'm currently working on and gonna start production on like soon, I'm actually gonna film it. Like on Monday is when I'm gonna film the first part of it. Maybe I'll finally go and like finish the anima video, because I just need to finish the final half of the script. It's not that far. It's just I stopped doing it and then I kind of just paused.
Yeah.
I want to go through, make it, create it, because it's not gonna be that hard. It's not a difficult thing. It's the same formula. It's just a different game. But like I really want to make that. So who knows, if you're out there really wanting anima content, stay tuned to the Glue Boys channel. I'll make a random Anima Beyond Fantasies, the best tabletop system you should never play, and you'll love it. And then I'll get in the good graces of Anima Dev, and I'll tell him to double down on the key system. Make it crazy.
I like the key system. The magic system's actually super broken.
Make it more broken. Maybe high magic needs to be accessible to players.
But, and Dead Phoenix just made a comment. My only problem with the remaster is most of the stuff I'm interested in is not even in first or second core. There's some changes like to Magus and Psychic that has been unstated currently, how they're going to be affected. I actually mentioned this before, how there's just some, like, Magus's Arcane Cascade stance doesn't make sense if there's no spell schools. Unless your spell does damage. So, you know, if new spells come out, you just kind of gotta shrug and be like, this one, I guess. You know what I mean? I don't know why they removed spell schools, other than the fact that, again, it's just a thing they shared with D&D. But, like, I feel that is so painful. I think that was a step too far, removing spell schools. I mean, felt it was unnecessary.
Yeah, I feel like they could have just been renamed.
Yeah,
like,
even that.
Could have just renamed the spell schools. Like, it would have been a little tough, but I feel like you could have done that. Other than like some very basic ones like illusion. Like illusion is a very common word, but like evocation, abjuration, like just change those around.
Even those are technically very generic.
Generic, but like I understand the decision to be like, legally speaking, we should differentiate. But I feel like, you know, illusion is on a different lens than evocation.
Well, how do you even change illusion to trickery magic? Whatever.
They could do that. Yeah, if they just renamed it,
just like
renamed the spell schools, it would make more sense.
There's a lot.
I also don't agree with like removing them entirely, but I'm waiting to see what it will actually mean.
Yeah, I just there's some very interesting things. There were some ancestry updates. Are we talking about the Nephilim stuff?
I'll need to look into that, as I'm playing a tiefling. I gotta figure out what my new stuff is.
I mean, Tim Johnson, I'm not 100% sure I agree. Granted, you're fair to have your point, but Archaic I wouldn't put it in, because Archaic is in reference to like a thing that was useful in the time when we didn't have the ability. Now, categorizing things is always useful in any way, and they were always free to make something outside the school, because they would just put it in a school anyway, and it didn't necessarily have to make sense. And in fact, they had schools for literally everything, so there wasn't anything you could do outside the school.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of I trust Paizo to make a solution to this. Like, I don't think it's gonna be a problem. I trust that they will have a solution that will probably feel around the same or fine, like in the change. I don't think they'll just gut a thing and be like, "Does this work? Send it." But on the other hand, I understand the worry of it.
unfortunately, that's just how it is, because they have certain class features, archetype features, that specifically refer to spell schools that now just don't work.
I mean, they'll be changed in the remaster at the very least, except for those classes that are waiting to be touched. That, yeah, they should probably have those first. Should have rules for that. I feel like it's kind of important, but who knows?
I mean, I'll definitely look at Mark. Like, I'm open to being convinced. I've just heard nothing convincing, because everything is just like, it's now they can just do whatever without worrying about schools. They had a school for everything. It doesn't matter. Does the spell do damage? Invocation. You know, does it protect you? Abjuration. Does it let you perceive beyond your normal capabilities? Divination. Like, there was nothing that a spell could do that would exist outside of that. Yeah, Rune Lords and Cathartic Mage also is in trouble. And balancing, the schools never needed to be balanced, really. There was no point to balancing how many spells were in each category.
Because the only thing, like, at least wizard wise, is like you get a free spell from the school of your choice. I get free evocation spells added on, so I have a slot just for evocation spells.
Yeah,
like I have that. That's all that really changes. In like,
like, it's just not something that would change anything, because another wizard who has a different school could still prepare that same spell you prepared, plus their own spell that you could have prepared with your other slots anyway. There's literally no balancing thing that would need to have been done.
I think it's another one where it's like, I don't see the reason. It was a kind of a dumb call, but I'll see it in play, especially because I'm going to be reading literally all that once it drops, because good lord, everything's changing for me.
But, you know, like I said, I'm open to being persuaded. I have yet to hear a convincing argument, but if it's fine, it's fine. If it works, it works. I've played games without spell schools, so it's generally fine. You know, the problem I have is there are legitimate mechanics in the game that rely on them, and also there's like categorizing spells. I don't see a problem in the act of actually categorizing spells.
Actually, here's the real question. I just opened up the thing. They have a system to just rename the spell schools. Why didn't they stick to that? Because, like, you know, focus spells are school spells, but, like, the one example they give is a school of mentalism. You could literally just do that for base spells. Like, yeah, you went to the school of, like, war magic, and that's your evocation wizard. You just do that. Like, I don't know. I think it's a weird decision. We'll see, but
I mean,
this is kind of goofy that, like, you have a system to keep spell schools and rename them, and you didn't. I don't know.
And apparently, you know, I guess Mark has made a convincing argument for it. I'll have to see it for sure. And I mean, there's no one I would trust more about this subject than Mark, even though he's not writing. He might be freelancing. I don't know. I don't know if he's freelancing for this new stuff or not. I haven't been keeping up, but he did write a lot of Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and a lot of parts that I liked personally. And I've spoken with him for hours on end in person.
He's very cool. I can trust that he'd make a good, like, argument.
Please do a video on your thoughts after watching Mark's video. Potentially, for sure.
I think that'd be a cool video of breaking down spell schools and, like, what the worry. I think it should be a good, well-performing video for the channel.
I definitely have a lot on the table at the moment to get out, so we'll see what happens by the time I get, because I still have all the Rage of Elements stuff that I've yet to do. Kineticist video coming out tomorrow, the actual Kineticist class, why this class is awesome, as well as I'll be looking into the items. I'll do my top 5 favorite items from Rage of Elements, and I'll do a video on Secrets of Rage of Elements where I talk about all the really cool things they added interspersed into the book as well.
Huh. Okay, I think I might. Wait, no. Okay. So the part I was wondering for this, because I'm looking through the spell changes, like new and revised spells. Like, there's another system they could have done that I think could have been better. Of like, you literally could have, if you want to rename spell schools or just take them out, then have a common keyword that kind of links spells together. So then, like, instead of evocation, there's a keyword that basically means evocation. Because like right here, there's one for augury. That's a divination spell, right?
Yes.
Because they have a tag prediction. So it's like, yeah, instead of a divination mage, this feat affects every spell that is has the prediction keyword. Like, that makes sense, I guess. Is it going to be a keyword game now? Is that what's happening? Can, like,
I mean,
I
it's already
play
a keyword
pyromancer?
game.
Yeah, like, instead of evocation mage, is it now a situation of I pick my element of, like, spell? Like, now I'm a pyromancer, I'm a cryomancer, etc.
Well, I
don't
think
know.
from the general gist of what I'm getting from everyone in their comments, it's they're making Magic more open-faced, so it doesn't really matter what school, a spell is in. It's just like Magic,
Yeah.
And I'm generally fine with the idea. I just there are things in the game that specifically relate to it, and
There are
also
things that are going to have to get errataed, and there's a lot of things where it's like, when are you going to errata this? And it's kind of left in the open.
And that's fair, Twiggy. If it's not your problem, not your problem.
If I wasn't playing Wizard at this moment, literally fucking same. Because after this, I'm just going to be playing Kineticist for the Blaster Caster feel.
Yeah.
Because Kineticist is just going to do it better, and I'm going to like it more. So, different campaign, I'm probably not going to come back to Wizard, even though I think it is a fun class. I just have to focus on it because my entire character is changing. Tiefling Wizard, let's go. Good old remaster. I'm excited to remake my sheet. Unironically, I am excited for the remaster. Sin Spell School sounds sick, though. That's metal.
Yeah. Well, I mean, whatever works, right? But it's not only Runelord we're talking about here. So, the thing is, it just created a lot of problems when I don't feel like it needed to.
It does. It's more of a complicated change than changing the names of the spell categories. I feel like that's just the easier pick. Like, that's less work to do, honestly. And, like, it leads less things you have to errata if you're just like, evocation is now called the School of War Mages, the School of Trickery, the School of Mentalism. Just change the names, and the problem is solved. That's what they did for everything else. But then spells are like, nah. Which is what's making me think they have a plan, but they should, I think, talk more about it so to voice the, like, changes they're actually gonna make. Like, because the concern of, hey, what's gonna happen to Magus is a very fair concern, and I wanna know. Like, that is important. There are people playing Magus that are just gonna have to sit and wait when they really shouldn't.
Right.
Like, I feel like phase 1 of these core class changes should probably lead the ones that are gonna be affected by the spell school change, because they're gonna need the errata sooner than others.
Correct. And
Champion, Wizard, and, like, spell school, like Magus and stuff, they deserve an early change since all of their shit's changing. No more alignment, no more spell schools.
For sure. Which a lot of it is being addressed.
Good.
Even the alignment thing, I feel like, is generally speaking such a non-change.
I think so too.
Nothing legitimately is actually changing. The spell school thing, like I said, there's just specific in-game mechanics. And yes. you missed us earlier, Twiggy. I said, if you like the old stuff, play the old stuff. I'm not even advocating for playing the old stuff for ourselves, particularly. I'm just saying that there are things in the game that literally are breaking. And I feel like that's a very fair criticism to make. Yeah. I'm all for adding stuff. I'm all for whatever they're doing with the remaster stuff. It's easy enough to understand. I've used more difficult Magic systems before, but this change literally breaks some mechanics for some characters. So
yeah, and it doesn't feel like some of them are going to be addressed soon enough, which is the
Right.
part where I'm like very fair. I'm of the same opinion, just with like, I trust Paizo. I think they're gonna come to a solution. I just hope it's not like gonna leave people sitting and waiting. That's the actual part where it's like, that's just not gonna be cool. That's
Yeah.
gonna be annoying for people of like, all my friends are playing the remaster, and it's like, hey guys, my class hasn't been remastered, and I really rely on spell school stuff. So like, what are we doing? And that's a problem that is going to be an annoying one for some GMs to deal with, especially not very experienced ones.
Correct.
Which is going to lead to people being like, I guess we just don't play the remaster now. And some people are like, damn, I really kind of wanted to because there's some really cool changes I wanted to use. And maybe it's just like a pick and choose thing. Who knows? It leads to problems that could have been avoided. And at some nebulous point in like maybe like a year or something, it'll all just be fine. Everything will be great because everything's been errata. Everything's got their rules updates. But when it first drops, I think there's just going to be some problems.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, exactly, Twiggy. You know, we have faith in Paizo. We're not saying screw. This is what happens when you join a stream, I guess, super late.
It actually is fun because you did miss like 30 minutes of us being like, you don't have to change. You can play the old stuff. It's totally fine. This is like our one hang up with the remaster. Everything else, I'm so fucking down for. And also, it's because we did the dedicated chunk of this to the people who are like, the remasters are ruining Pathfinder, and to a large extent, like, it's not. And also, you don't need to play it if you don't want to. You can just keep doing the old stuff.
And Archive and Nethys will have all the old rules available anyway, which is fine. And for some people, they will have to use that until it gets addressed, which
and I want to use the
bad.
remaster stuff. That does feel bad. I want to use the remaster stuff because I'm down for the changes, except for flat-footed, and that one's dumb.
I mean, I literally have to because I make a channel based on informing people about the game.
And most likely, yeah, if you're
so
yeah, you're covering actual rules as written, and then if you're doing any Paizo associated things, you're gonna have to adapt.
Yeah, so it's like I'm fine with it. I'm not a person who's opposed to change by any means. I am ready for whatever new stuff comes out. I believe in Paizo workers. I believe in the stuff they've written. It's good. I think it will be fine. But that doesn't mean I can't criticize things that are legitimately criticizable. Okay, we had this conversation too. You can criticize something that you thoroughly enjoy. You know. You can like things you can criticize.
Damn. Yeah, if you joined 30 minutes earlier, it'd be so good. That'd be a peak, like, oh yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Because we probably all agree on those points. Because just help me.
For Barbarian, they actually do get optimization. Granted, it's not early, but they get Mighty Rage, which does actually allow them to do a 1 or 2 action rage ability while raging. So they actually already have that. Ranger, yeah, I do feel like they could make Ranger a little bit better by creating more opportunities to optimize. I think Magus also desperately needs more of that kind of stuff as well. Because Magus feels really bad with not only recharging Spell Strike, but Arcane Cascade being a stance as well. I would even prefer if they just made Arcane Cascade a rechargeable, like you can recharge your Spell Strike and go in Arcane Cascade at the same time.
I agree. I think that'd make me enjoy, because I played Magus. You saw that, and yeah, Magus is. I feel like you have to play it in a specific way to enjoy it. It's kind of. I think it could use some rework. I hope it gets a good rework, because I wanted to really like Magus. Is like, this is the closest I can get to a 5e Paladin, but it's just kind of not that. It's different and it feels weird. However, the things you can do with Magus rule. I've heard your stories of how much damage you can output. That neuron activation, hearing that. But
300 damage in a round ain't small cookies.
Oof. It's so nice. However, in the act of playing Magus, didn't really fuck with it.
Yeah. And I think Alchemist also is getting a lot of, kind of like what you're saying, Twiggy, is they are also getting a lot of the more modernized things they've added kind of baked into their kit with the remaster as well. So
Good.
I am completely okay with the remaster as far as everything, mostly, you know.
It is better than 5e Paladin. It just doesn't feel better. I'm not having as much fun.
I don't know. It's hard to conflate the two because of the action economy diff.
It's very different. However, just like there's something very easy that makes monkey brain happy of hit and then click a thing of yes, I will smite.
Yeah,
that's actually my biggest problem right now with Baldur's Gate 3 is like you have to do it preemptively. You can't do it after. You can't click a button that says, "Do you want to smite this?" I'm like, damn it. That's what's fun though, because I like you get a nat 20 and then you're like, yes, I will smite.
Yeah, right. That's why it's like I don't like. I agree with what you just said, where you can spell strike and maze as someone, and I like the idea. I love expansive spell strike, which allows you to use any spell that has a save or attack.
It is a dope feat. It's such a good feat.
It's I would say necessary.
Yes.
I would. I literally have played now a Magus to 20 without taking it. Feels bad. You kind of need it, I feel, to get the most out of Magus.
It's just like it's the difference of game feel, because like it was actually something we were talking about before stream when we were talking about Remnant. Is specifically like this thing might be really good, like really helpful, really strong, but are you having more fun using it?
Right.
At the end of the day, like that's more what matters, because like logically, yeah, Magus is better because Pathfinder's a better system. It has better like an action economy system. It's a lot more balanced. It's a lot more well designed. I'm a better fan of it. However, 5e Paladin hits different. It feels great to play. I adore Vengeance Paladin in 5e.
Yeah, I don't know. I would like it more if Magus could just enchant their blade and then the spell goes off on next hit rather than next you make a strike as a part of the spell strike. Will it make it much stronger? Yes. But will it feel better? Also, yes.
That was honestly my problem. I hated doing that of like, okay. Because you know how it is. It's the thing that was getting me some slight tabletop community clout today on Twitter. Of I just really don't like things that make it feel like you wasted your time.
Yeah,
it's my biggest
Magus.
It's my biggest issue. It's my biggest morale breaker of just having that repeatedly. 1 or 2 times, fair enough. Sometimes the dice doesn't work in your favor sometimes. If it consistently happens and it's like, okay, this is just kind of annoying. I'm not having fun now. This just feels bad.
Well, especially because spell striking is a 3 action load. Because it's 2 action for spell strike plus I need to recharge if you want to do it again. And the fact that it is a hit or miss ability feels terrible.
It doesn't feel great.
And so that's I would honestly, if I had my way, I would make it where maybe Maguses have lesser spell levels than other spellcasters, but when they enchant their weapon, it's on until it hits, or it lasts a minute.
I think I would enjoy that more. That would literally solve my problem with Magus.
Yeah.
I would probably still be playing a Magus.
Because then it would feel better, I feel like.
Significantly. Sure. I just hated wasting spell slots.
And it's already good. It's all like a spell strike is just a better power attack, even if you use a cantrip, right? So just knock Magus down to like max level 8 spells or level 7 spells if you really feel like they're too strong, and just make the spell an enchantment. I'll be good with that. And yeah, 5e Paladin, I mean, like the ability to choose when you hit, that's exactly like that's even better than what we're talking about, right? Because what we're talking about is you're prepping, and whatever you hit is going to use the spell you just loaded into it. But Paladin, man, they don't even have to be wanting to do a smite. There's so many times I put a Paladin, and I was just like, I hit. Oh, it's a crit. I guess I'll smite. Wasn't like I was planning to.
Yeah, I literally in our Out of the Abyss game, I saved my 5th level like smite slots for nat 20 smites. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna save that. I'm gonna fight some big demon man, and I gotta output as much damage as possible. Though also, we are going over time.
Yeah.
I gotta make food, and I gotta piss.
Okay.
I chugged a Baja Blast during this stream. I gotta go.
The classic mistake. We are going over time though. I was watching the time, but yeah.
Oh yeah, we just kept going.
Good rant there.
Yeah.
But that's gonna be it for us today. Thank you everyone who stopped by. And you know, honestly speaking, we actually had a pretty good audience. We didn't have a lot of chat in the beginning, but we were consistently over 10 viewers for most of the chat, which again, y'all might not think is big, but it's big when you're a small streamer.
It's also like what? Better than 90% of streamers.
70%. 70% is 10.
Okay, 70.
If you get over 20, then you're in the top 90% of streaming. So yeah, which is crazy to think that
absolutely
people
insane.
Have 40,000 in their streams. That's the difference it really makes. But yeah, it's been great. So be on the lookout. There is Kineticists. Why is Kineticists awesome tomorrow? And I'll be doing some other Age of Element stuff. I also got some other videos. Like I did some videos beforehand that I never like edited because I was rushing to do Rage of Element stuff, and I just kind of got everything garbled up and was super busy. But there's a lot coming out now. Starting tomorrow, videos should be coming out regularly again. So be on the lookout for that. Anything you want to leave with us, sir, before we head out?
If any of y'all give a shit about Warhammer, I mention it a lot in Table Talk, because that is my game of choice and my favorite thing. I run a Warhammer lore channel. It's just Glue Boy. Look me up. Look for the Smiling Virgil. I just put out a video today on 5 lesser known but very fucking spooky alien races. It's a real fun video, so go give that a watch, give that a look. I got some really cool projects in the works that are going to come out in the next couple weeks. Some stuff I've been putting off, and some stuff I've been working actually very hard to make. So any engagement with that is much appreciated. And especially this is one of the best times to get into Warhammer. Specifically, it's the most accessible it's ever been, like in history. It's been a thing. So give it a go. It's a really fun world.
All right, but we're gonna say good night.
Good night.